thumbs up when you're ready to start, so we get on the air. Yeah, he's going to give us a thumbs up when he's ready to start.
Aloha and welcome everybody to the Lahaina Strong Candidate Forum. Mahalo everyone for coming and spending your Monday evening with us. I know this is not your typical event or show to show up to, so we are really appreciative to all of the candidates and also our community members coming to get engaged and informed. From our experiences at the Capitol this past year, we saw that things like advocacy work or legislation is desired to deter regular people from participating. And the purpose for us doing this here today as Lahaina Strong is just for that purpose, to give everyone a chance to participate and feel comfortable enough to show up. So we mahalo all of you for coming and all the candidates for taking the time out of your busy day. Before we move on, I want to give a few mahalos to all the folks that helped make this happen. First, I want to give a big mahalo to Chelsea Davis of Hawaii News Now for being our moderator. We're so appreciative of you, Charles. Na Aloha Ekolu, Roundtable Pizza, Hua Momona Farms for all of the food. Mahalo to Maui Tomorrow, Kavika Hoke, to help us put this on. We also mahalo Pacific Counseling Group that has our keiki corner over there, keeping our keiki engaged. Mahalo for Gami Home Care, Alfie from Rebuild Maui, and Akaku for the live broadcasting.
And yes, before we continue, I wanted to make it known and clear that we do have the County of Maui over here for voter registration table. Given that many people have lost their old mailboxes and their places where they used to get their mail through, they can help you get that stuff updated and make sure you're registered to vote and get your ballots in time for the upcoming election. So, yes, aloha, I'm Pa'ele with Lahaina Strong. And we know that Lahaina Strong has a reputation of being spicy. Some feisty. Some people consider us a little bit radical at times. But it is only because we aren't afraid to ask the hard questions. And we're not afraid to get in front and point out things that we may see as not pono, or just because we care about the people in front of us, not the people driving on the road behind us or the people staying in the hotels next to us. We care about the people in front of us, and that's why we put something like this together so that our people are heard and they're taken into account. But that being said, obviously it will be very different from your traditional candidate forums because we will ask those very difficult questions, and our community deserves the answers to them. So to all of our incumbents, we acknowledge your skill in this work, and it may come as an advantage to you because you have the experience in your positions and in your seats. But it may also come as a disadvantage to you, depending on potential policy making that have been put through, potential policy that you did not put through. And we will make sure those questions are going to be brought up and answered. But we are committed to being fair. And if it seems like we are being unbiased or putting some people more so on the spot than others, it is because we know you can handle it. And we know you have the experience in that seat. That being said, though, we are truly honored for all of you for showing up, especially to those who did not chicken out at the very last second. And without further ado, though, let's get this show on the road. I'd like to hand it off to Chelsea Davis with Hawaii News Now, who will be our moderator today. Super honored to have her here, and I'll hand it off to her to kick us off. Mahalo.
Testing. Can everyone hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Jordan and Paele and Lahaina Strong, for having me. Aloha, and welcome to our forum featuring the candidates for Maui County Council. I'm Chelsea Davis from Hawaii News Now, and I'll be serving as tonight's moderator. We're here in beautiful West Maui at Lahaina's Hanako'o Beach Park, also known as Canoe Beach, and the candidates for council are ready to share their mana'o about top issues facing voters this election. We're going to be covering a wide range of topics, from housing to the environment. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer a question, either from myself or a community member. Then each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. First up, let's welcome the candidates for Wailuku, Waihe'e, and Waikapu. Incumbent Alice Lee, Chair of the Maui County Council, and her challenger, James Forrest, Environmental Attorney. Okay, before we get started, I want to remind the audience to please refrain from making noise during this forum and to please be respectful. Let's begin with the topic of housing. Council Chair Lee, a recent survey found that 56% of Maui residents identify affordable housing as the most pressing issue, and many feel the County Council's response to the Lahaina fire has been insufficient. How do you respond to the criticism of the Council's progress on housing solutions for those displaced by the fires, and what steps are you taking to address this housing crisis?
Aloha, everybody. It's a beautiful day. Thank you for having this day for us. As far as the housing is concerned, your county council has worked very, very hard, a lot harder than you would even know. We don't have 6 PR people surrounding us every day, taking pictures and issuing press releases and all of these things. We don't have that like the mayor does. And I think some people don't realize that the council's role is legislative, and we don't actually we're not directly involved in building homes, but we approve the funding for the homes, and we also approve the policies for the homes. The council this year passed the Ohana Assistance Program, and this use of detached and attached units for homes will enable you, if qualified, to receive a grant of $100,000 if you meet certain qualifications. And this will provide hundreds upon hundreds of affordable rental housing for lots of people. And this cannot be short-term rentals. These are all long-term rentals at an affordable rate. We also have been fighting for, and I mean fighting for, water for all of you. And it has been very difficult because of certain rules, state rules on existing uses and new uses. And of course, your biggest advocate is Councilmember Tamara Paulton, and we've been trying to help her get the water available for permanent housing, not just interim housing. We want permanent housing.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Forrest, how would you address the housing crisis differently than the current leadership? What concrete steps would you take to expedite long-term housing solutions for those displaced by the fires, especially given the skyrocketing rents and the fact that only 1 home has been rebuilt in Lahaina so far? Do you want? Does that? Oh.
Testing. Okay. I don't know if we're going to have feedback, my friend. All right. Thank you. I'm James Forrest. It's a pleasure to be here. I think I've been looking forward to this meeting with Lahaina Strong more than any other meeting we've had. I'm really passionate about helping locals get over this hurdle and continue to thrive on this beautiful island. I have a lot of ideas that haven't been implemented in the county. One of my biggest ideas would be to raise property taxes for our hotels. If you look at the hotels, they are obviously benefiting the most from the resources of the island, but they're not actually paying back enough. I wouldn't have to do this if they would pay honest wages themselves, but they haven't done that in the past. This is called marginalization. Marginalization is whenever you have a group of people that are working and their work product isn't being realized by them, but it's being realized by someone off island. It's unfortunately, these corporations do not participate in our local economy, much less the circular economy. So I would tap into that resource, and that would be hundreds of millions of dollars of tax revenues that I would dedicate to the Affordable Housing Fund. And if I'm going to make a distinction between me and the other candidate for this office, I would say that I don't take a corporation and pack donations from luxury developers. My opponent has a history of taking all donations over her whole career. I have a little sheet here. Everything you see in red is a donation from a corporation that is not in Maui. This tells the story of the career and the money that's funding her campaign. So that's the difference between me and the incumbent. Thank you.
Okay, next question we have from the community. Community member, could you please come up to ask this second question? And please state your name.
Aloha, my name is Gretchen Lozano. My question is to Mr. Forrest first. Lahaina families have historically placed a high value on protecting our children from exposure to harmful chemicals, as demonstrated by our support for the 2014 GMO moratorium. Considering the recent proposals to reallow synthetic pesticides in county parks, what steps would you take to ensure the health and safety of our keiki, especially given our potential exposure to toxins post-fire, while also maintaining our public park spaces?
Thank you for that question. This choice is clear. The legislation that you're talking about was filed by my opponent. Bill 99 is a bill that was to undo the work that we've done to outlaw pesticide use on county land. As a county, you have control over what you do with your land. Unlike, we can't regulate so much on private property, but we can regulate our own county land. We made that decision. The community worked together. We got input from the community. We had several meetings about it, and we passed that ban, making so where pesticides weren't allowed. So the best thing you can do to ensure that that's not going to happen is to put me in office. I'm never going to do something like that. I work in soil remediation. I've worked with the Pacific Biodiesel sunflower farm, working on regenerative farming. So if you are looking for someone who can make progress in restoring our land, restoring our waters, I'm the candidate for you. I might be even more radical than most people around here when it comes to the environment, and protecting our land and our children from pesticides is one of my biggest priorities. And I just think it's just one of those contrasts that you have to make between candidates when my opponent is the one who filed the pesticide bill, which I just don't think anyone here wants to have our community parks filled with pesticides where our children are playing.
Okay, Chair Lee, given our community's strong support for protecting our children, the concerns about recent proposals to exempt the county parks from the pesticide ban is very real. I worked really hard over the years on the pesticide bans, both on the roadways and in the county parks. personally, we like hand painted the signs. But with the potential for our keiki to have already been exposed to all of these environmental toxins on the west side after the fire, how do you plan to address these concerns while balancing the park maintenance needs?
Okay. As you probably know, since you've been following this, the bill before us has to do with the exemption of these this organic substances to exempt the county playing parks. So the reason for that is last month and previously, when you see this, the original bill exempted the county for 3 years. So this 3 years is up. So it's not like we've been using the new substance. We haven't. But when they started using the new substance, people started getting sick. Over 1,200 people signed a petition. That's a lot of people. And I got a lot of calls, and I'm sure the other members did too. So the Parks Department looked at the idea of exempting only the playing parks. But I'm sure the council members are also open to hearing other types of mitigation measures. We just haven't heard them yet because we haven't had a chance. We've only had one meeting, and I'm sure we're going to have many more on this subject. And so if you have any suggestions, please feel free to attend these meetings or let us know, because we're very open. Our concern is public health and safety, and so it's unfortunate that we do not have whatever it takes to weed control the big areas. Waihu Golf Course is over 700 acres, so it's hard for us to ask the players to pick up to weed the grass. But the thing is, we also have a civil service system. So I heard that in Lahaina, the kids actually pull the weeds. Yeah, they pull the weeds. But I don't think we could get away with that in Central Maui. I wish we could.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, question number 3, final question on the topic of water. Council Chair Lee, as Maui continues to face a housing crisis, there is growing concern about the impact of increased development on our natural resources, particularly our water. How do you factor in the environmental and ecological consequences of ongoing construction? Given the pressures of our island's limited resources, what steps are you taking to ensure a balance between building and maintaining the health of our ecosystems?
Thank you. All of us support the use of R1 water. And in order to free up potable water for domestic use or other important uses. When we first got on the council several years ago, we put in millions, over $7 million in South Maui to have this R1 be developed and distributed throughout South Maui. And that is in process. We also approved of the funding to do the same thing previously, actually, before South Maui, for West Maui. And we have been very supportive of the department to expand those projects where R1 is used instead of potable water. So this is something that we are very strongly in favor of and have supported in the budget throughout the years, and will continue to do so. We believe in balanced growth. So if we don't have the water, it's hard to justify any new developments without all the infrastructure in place or planned to be in place. So we are very careful about these things. Our major concern right now is fire prevention. And we have to make sure that not only do we have water for domestic use, for the streams, for ecology, but for fire prevention. And that's why we are looking at a fire prevention reduction unit within the fire department and arson squad, because we have had enough of all of these fires that are preventable. And so this is where your council is working very hard.
Thank you. Mr. Forrest, how do you plan to factor in the environmental and ecological impacts of continued construction, and what is your approach to ensuring that development does not compromise the island's natural resources and water supply?
Thank you. That's a very important question. I wanted to start out by saying that my opponent's been on the council for 16 years. And to take a line for her, do you feel like we have balanced growth in Lahaina? Do you feel like it's been one-sided for luxury development in Lahaina? Do you wonder why that is? Do you feel like it's time for change? I am that change. Please vote for me. Please look at my website. You'll see extremely detailed explanations of my water policy. With water rights, I also want you to focus on lead core development. I know you know lead core because Lahaina Strong is some of the most educated activists and voters on the island. You all went to the environmental impact meeting. I was there protesting with you. You all protested because that development from lead core was going to take water to build about 900 luxury homes. That's the problem. Lead core is donated to my opponent's campaign last year and this year the max amount. All this information you can find over at my table. What you're going to get from me, you're going to get a situation where lead core is never going to come to our island because I'm going to be a part of a supermajority here, and we're going to fight for actual development of affordable housing. Now, another comparison with my opponent is if you look at the charter amendment for water authorities, my opponent objected to it and voted against it in its beginning. The people voted overwhelmingly to have water authorities as a charter amendment, 85%, something like that vote. Whenever the issues came up, she opposed the executive director, Gina Young. Everything she's doing to oppose EMI, the water authority, to keep the water out of local hands. And so you have a clear choice of someone who has a track record of doing the bidding for the luxury developers, or someone like me who will put you first, use our water for our locals. I also have a policy where I would like to limit water for the hotels. They're our biggest water wasters, and to limit them would provide the resources needed for affordable housing. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to give each of you 1 minute for closing remarks. And Councilmember Chair Lee, I'll start with you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say again, mahalo so much for having this event for us. It's a really nice opportunity to speak one-on-one with a lot of the people here. I've decided to take the high road. I'm not going to talk about that. And so all I can say is we all, the council members, try really hard to work together. If you want an effective county council, one that is successful, accountable, and works closely with the community, you have to have a council that knows how to build consensus, can work with one another, can work with the departments, the state, the federal groups. So this is what you really need to look for if you want success for your community, for your island, for our state. Please vote in this upcoming election because your vote is very important to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Forrest, you have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Thank you. And again, thank you so much for having this evening. Lahaina Strong is the most powerful voting bloc for this election. And if you all vote, if you all get your families to vote, your friends to vote, you will have a council that puts your housing needs above luxury developers. You're going to have a council that puts your sovereignty above hotel profits and your lives above all else. Now, I was at the Capitol whenever Lahaina Strong came and fought for mainly the funding to start the recovery. I saw the battles you fought, and I celebrated the victories. The victories, and we need you to show up one more time, show up for this county election, vote for the people that are endorsed by the Kanaka movement. The same people are endorsed by the Ohana candidates. We all signed the Our Hawaii Pledge. We don't have political parties here, but there's a clear distinction. Please come check out my table. You'll see some information. This is all fact. You can do some of your research for yourself. But please take a look at my campaign, and I'm available if you have any questions after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Please, everybody, put your hands together for our two candidates. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have candidates for Upcountry. Incumbent Yukile Sugimura, Vice Chair of the Maui County Council and the Chair of the Budget, Finance, and Economic Development Committee, and her challenger, Jocelyn Cruz, Farm Project Manager. Do we need to take a moment to do a sound check?
Testing, testing.
Testing.
Those should be good. Those two are on right there.
Okay.
Testing.
Mine's on, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
yes.
working.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Question number 1. Vacant homes and non-owner occupied tax increases. Councilmember Sugimura, Lahaina Strong has strongly advocated for converting short-term rentals into long-term housing to address the severe post-fire housing shortage. One concern raised by opponents is the potential loss of property tax revenue from these conversions. The Honolulu City Council is considering Bill 46, which proposes raising property taxes on vacant homes to tackle the housing scarcity, reduce speculative investment, and raise revenue. Do you support a similar approach for Maui? And would you support raising taxes on non-owner occupied or vacant homes to aid Lahaina's recovery while addressing potential budget deficits?
You're singing my song. So the what you're talking about with City and County of Honolulu is doing on that vacant tax, we already have a tax on non-owner homes, right? So if you have a second home here and you don't live there, we already have a higher tax for you. So we've kind of covered that by looking at the City and County of Honolulu tax. They have a lot of exemptions, which we need to investigate. The problem that you're talking about is that the short-term vacation rentals, which there are 7,000 of them, and significantly South Maui and in Lahaina. And those homes that are A1, Apartment 1, and Apartment 2 zoned, the proposed bill is, to me, an expression heard by the community, Lahaina Strong, that we need housing, right? We don't want these people who come and invade our communities to make us as the residents uncomfortable of being in our own community. So the bill that is before us, we have asked for information on a report that we should get ending of the year, that we can get all the data so we understand what are we really talking about. And that's the problem, I think, with the bill that is proposed so far, that we will be anticipating once we get more data. The idea of taxing them more, I read the UHERO report, and that's exactly what the University of Hawaii recommended, is to discourage them by taxing them more. And I will tell you that taxation is how we pay for your services, and that we need to be careful what we do, because for Mother's Day, this is one of my favorite stories. I had family friends over, and we were having breakfast, and they happened to bring up my work and started talking about that. That's a mistake, because I started going on and on. I said, okay, all of you on this table, you all own houses. And I said, just remember, if we get rid of this tax and we're not careful, your taxes may go up. So we have to be very careful.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cruz, Lahaina Strong has been vocal about the need to convert short-term rentals into long-term housing to address the housing crisis in the aftermath of the fires. Honolulu is considering Bill 46, which would raise property taxes on non-owner occupied homes to discourage out-of-state investors and keep housing available for local residents. Do you believe a similar policy would be effective here in Maui County?
Thank you. Aloha, thank you for hosting us tonight. And yes, I do agree with that. So I was just speaking recently with Dick Mayer, an economist, and he was letting me know that Maui has even lower we have some of the lowest tax rates in the world, and ours are lower than Honolulu. So we need to, at the very least, match that. And I do support the vacant property tax. If you look at the Vancouver model, that really helped them out of some of their issues. So I think that's one step in the right direction. And then also looking at the zoning of some of these STRs and figuring out where we can make more happen with those, because we have to get people housed immediately. One of the most recent numbers I heard was at least 600 units. So if we can get the county to purchase 600 of those units to put people in there long term, that could possibly be another step in the right direction. And yeah, I would definitely support raising taxes for vacant properties.
Thank you very much. Okay, question number 2 comes from one of our community members. Come right on up. Please state your name.
Can you hear me? Okay. Aloha, Mikey Burke. Growing up in Lahaina, you have to wear many hats. So the hat I'm wearing today is community member, homeowner, team member for Lahaina Community Land Trust. So my first question is for you, Ms. Cruz. Many families in Lahaina are deeply concerned about potential land grabs, fearing that outside investors might take advantage of displaced residents struggling to rebuild. Many of us are using our insurance proceeds to pay the rent because the FEMA portion that is available is minimal. The community feels strongly that Lahaina land should remain in the hands of its original owners, allowing them to return home. As a settler to Maui, how important is it to you to ensure that local families can retain their property and prevent outsiders from exploiting this crisis?
That issue is very important to me. I actually know Autumn Nest really well. So what I would like to do is just support you all in the best way that I can. I work closely with Forrest, and we've been talking about certain bills that we can help pass. So I think the number one thing we need to do is sit down with you all, see exactly what you need, and then how we can best support that. And I think you all, I know you all are the most resilient community I've ever witnessed, and I think most people have ever witnessed. So what we need to do is just support you, follow your lead, and then get some legislation written so we can pass things to help you all. Thank you.
Councilmember Sugimura, with fears of Lahaina land grabs growing in the community, many are worried about outside investors purchasing land from displaced families. How important is it to you that Lahaina's land stays with its original owners, and what specific measures would you propose to protect local families from losing their property in this vulnerable time?
Thank you for that question. So you're asking us a question that is very important, that myself as a budget chair, or tomorrow, and all of us that are on the council, when we went through the budget this year, we gave money, millions of dollars, to the Lahaina Foundation for exactly that. Because, and the interesting thing is, because we know Tamara and because of the testifiers that came, we said this is something very important, right? Keep Lahaina land in Lahaina hands. And so therefore, we gave millions of dollars because that's what it's going to need. We need to buy the land back and keep it in Lahaina hands, right? So just recently I was talking to a family, and they were talking about they have a house that got burnt. They don't know what to do with it, and they said they want to pass it on to probably talk to this group to see what can be done, and they weren't sure if they wanted to. I see Tamara clapping. They weren't sure if they wanted to rebuild because of the cost, right, and because of their age. So whatever it is, I think that what you're asking us is to trust this organization, to talk to the people who are lost, have lost valuables, lost their homes, and how can we keep their homes with the people that we love. So I think that's a mission that all of us shared. And if you look at our budget, we even put all the leftover money in the Affordable Housing Fund will go towards housing in Lahaina. I mean, we did everything in the budget to try to support exactly what you're saying. I mean, we feel you. We react as Chair Lee tries to describe the council, right? We do policy, we do funding, we do actions that relate to other departments within the county taking action. So whatever way we can do, we're going to provide funding so that what you're describing can happen. It is important to all of us. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, last and final question. Question number 3, injection wells and R1 water. Councilmember Sugimura, we'll start with you. The Lahaina community has strongly opposed the continued use of injection wells, and you have previously supported taking the case to the U.S. Supreme Court to defend their use. Given the community's clear opposition and the environmental impacts associated with injection wells, how do you plan to address these concerns and work toward a complete phase-out of injection wells in West Maui?
That is our goal, right? So the EPA spoke loud and clear. And I want you to know that in this budget, we put in, just to do exactly that, because of the injection wells, the NPDES, National NPDES permit, which is a permit that Department of Health needs to give to the West Maui wastewater reclamation facility. So we put millions of dollars in there so that they could go after that. The use of R1 is a way of saving water, potable water, drinking water, right? So this action that we're doing, and we're taking steps forward, is exactly where we need to go, because more so because of the Supreme Court mandate which we're under. So we are under the gun. We need to do the things to therefore protect the environment and the reefs, which was the threat proposed, which caused that Supreme Court action to be taken. So we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cruz, Lahaina Strong and the community have strongly opposed the continued use of injection wells due to their environmental impact. If you are elected, how would you prioritize ending the reliance on injection wells?
Yeah, I would like to say that I do think it's a shame that the county fought and wasted $4.3 million in taxpayers' dollars, when there were people on the council at the time like Kelly King who were like, we should just settle, have the hotels pay for, you got to raise their taxes, their water tax rates, so that you make them pay for a safe way to discard of that water. And we have to use the R1 water. So, we have to, because that was the ruling of the case. But also, it's like we have to free up the potable water for affordable housing for the residents here. The golf courses can use it. Some golf courses use up to 1 million gallons of water per day. So it's like, if they're using any potable water for that, that's complete mismanagement. Again, that would be by the county. So I'm in support of raising tax rates on the hotels, making them help fund some of these facilities, and making sure that we write bills and legislation that push all of these things through and forward.
Thank you very much. We have 1 minute for closing remarks, and Ms. Cruz, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So I'm a project manager for a farm here on island, and one of my biggest passions and drives is food sovereignty for our island. I know that that's something that's absolutely feasible. I earlier this year was on the production team for the Sunflower Farm Music Festival, and that was a benefit concert focused around food security. So we were able to raise $31,000 for Common Ground Collective, Grow Some Good, and Maui Food Hub. So that's another thing that I'm passionate about, is just really building up our food hubs on island. We actually just attended the Hawaii Farmers Union, so a huge shout out to Kaipo and his team for hosting such an amazing event. And yesterday we actually voted on different legislation that was really important to us, and two of the most important things were getting water back into the hands of the people, so things like the East Maui Water Authority and championing water authorities in different parts of the island, and also restoring things like Moku'ula. We really need to take care of our wetlands. So water, food, and housing are my biggest passions and why I'm running. Thank you
so much. Vice Chair Sugimura.
Thank you. As you were talking, I got to look behind all of you, and there was a canoe that was being brought up from the ocean. And as I looked on it, I thought, you know what? That is us. The County of Maui is one member of this canoe that we all need to paddle together. The departments have to work together. The members of the community, which you represent, all of us have to work together to get us to the final destination. And the final destination that we have as a council is housing. We fight for housing. We look for money. And we want to make sure that there are affordable workforce housing for the people who really run the economy. We also need to work with the departments to make sure that, they can do the things that they want to do. And most importantly, your voices are really important. Without you, we have no work. So I'm grateful to Lahaina Strong for putting this on. Chelsea Davis, to see you in person. Thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate it. And to all of you, let's all roll together and be in the canoe together. We need you all.
Thank you both very much. Round of applause for these two candidates, everyone. Next, the candidates for Kahului. Incumbent Tasha Kama, chair of the Housing and Land Use Committee, could not make it tonight, but we do have her challenger, Carolee Kamekona, a retired 22-year Navy veteran. Please, everyone, put your hands together for Miss Kamekona. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
First question.
Kalamai Chelsea. Aloha ahi yako kako. E kalamai. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Carolee Kamekona. I am a Kanaka Maoli. And for all Kanaka Maolis here, you know the most important thing for us is to be on Aina and to have our way in the lepo. I am no higher than you. I am no better than you. So I am here on the same level as you. E kalamai, Chelsea. I need to be here with the people.
Thank you. First question is about housing. Ms. Kamekona, if elected, what specific types of housing-related legislation do you plan to draft and introduce to address the critical issues facing our community?
So, mahalo, Chelsea, for that question. I think that question could be answered by an analysis and a report that was done in 2021. The Comprehensive Affordable Housing Plan tells exactly what we needed here in Maui in order to address our housing deficiency. So that is my number one goal, is to ensure that my platform implements that comprehensive affordable housing plan.
Thank you very much. Second question comes from one of our community members. So community member, please come on up. Yeah.
Hi, Ms. Kamekona. My name is Krishna. I work with the Hawaii Workers Center and also part of the Maui Tenants and Workers Association. So with the housing crisis and rent stabilization proposed as a solution, how would you ensure housing remains accessible and affordable for local families and fire survivors, especially as FEMA's direct leasing ends in February of 2025, private insurance expires, and the market faces limited supply? Do you believe rent stabilization would help to addressing this shortage?
Mahalo for that question, Krishna. 100%. I will tell you, I differ from my opponent because I 100% believe in rent stabilization. I believe in the rental cap. What FEMA did to our people is an utter disgrace. Who can afford $5,000 for a studio? Who can afford up to $11,000 for a 3-bedroom home? None of us can. Those of us that have to work 2 and 3 jobs in a 2-income household, come on now. That cannot happen. We need our families to be able to strive, not just strive, but also to thrive. Thrive and have money to be able to take their children to the movies, to be able to go out to dinners. We need to be able to do that. And in order to bring affordable housing in, again, I would implement the comprehensive affordable housing plan. I would ensure that there is some kind of rental cap and rent stabilization so that the rents don't go astronomically out of control like they are now. Also, with rent stabilization, it allows our people to know and to predict and to be stable in their rent. They don't have to worry about being priced out of their home. They don't have to be worried about spending such astronomical amounts. So with that rent stabilization, we will be able to curb that. So mahalo for that question.
Thank you so much. Okay, last and final question. A moratorium on new visitor accommodations. Ms. Kamekona, with the current water crisis on Maui, affordable housing project in West Maui is at a standstill. Would you support a moratorium on new visitor accommodations or luxury developments to ensure that Maui's limited resources are prioritized for local residents rather than tourism?
I believe Maui has enough accommodations for the visitor industry. We don't need to be building any more accommodations for them, inclusive of the STRs. I am for the STRs and the A1 and A2 being converted to long-term because we need to take care of our people now. Providing that, you know what's already there? Brick and mortar's there, infrastructure is there, water is there, cable is there. Nothing else is going to be utilized or added to where if we had to build a new project, how long is that going to take? We know well here the permitting process is forever. So converting that STR to long-term, I support. Also, with the hotels and the resorts. Oahu has a restriction on water that hotels and resorts can use of 4,000 gallons a day. Maui does not have that. We need to implement a restriction. Grand Wailea uses over 600,000 gallons a day. 600,000 gallons a day. My household of only 2, we're lucky if we use 2,500 in a month. A month. So to curb tourism accommodations, we've got enough hotels. We don't need any more. Let's put them in the hotel zones where they belong, not in our residences and our residential neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. And you have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Thank you, Chelsea. Again, I want to mahalo Lahaina Strong and all of you who have had the hand in putting this together for us. Again, as a Kanaka Maoli, I am so privileged to be on Aina. This is the best forum I believe we have ever had because we're on Aina and we're in Lepo. So mahalo to each and every one of you and also to the community for being here. And please remember, my platform and my vision cannot come to fruition without your support and without your vote on November 5th. So I ask you for your vote to help this council, next upcoming council, put you and every one of our local residents first. No more developers, no more outside investments. Our people need to come first. Again, your vote, November 5th, will make that happen. My website, caroleekamekona.com. I have Facebook. I have Instagram. And what did you call that, Tamara, the other time? TikTok. No, X. You said X. Yeah, I have an X. That was like 30-something years ago. But whatever that is, I have that too. And you know what, guys? This is really weird for me. This is like the third time I've had to be by myself at a forum. So it's kind of nerve-wracking to be up here and not be able to have, you know, like somebody else to bounce off of. But thank you, mahalo, and good night.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for Ms. Kamekona. Okay, next up we have South Maui incumbent Tom Cook, chair of the Water and Infrastructure Committee, and his challenger Kelly King, business owner and former South Maui Council member. Thank you. Okay, question number 1. R1 allocation. Councilmember Cook, you recently introduced a resolution to use R1 water for construction, referring to it as a valued commodity rather than a public trust resource, and without specifying the type of construction it would support. Given the county's record of prioritizing high-end developments over affordable housing, how will you ensure that R1 water is treated as a natural or cultural resource that is preserved for public benefit?
Thank you, aloha all, and thank you for the opportunity to clarify that, because I've heard it a couple times, and that was not necessarily how the resolution is intended. Basically, the R1, I'm a strong advocate of utilizing our resources intelligently. Since our water shortage on both the west side and the south side, using R1 water is a relatively low-hanging fruit. It's high in nutrients, excellent for irrigation, and so we can use it on the land and keep it out of the ocean and free up potable water for building homes. In the resolution, if you read the body of the reso, it says twice about affordable units. I'm an advocate not just of building affordable homes, but obtainable homes. We also need to build for our doctors and our nurses and our professionals and other people, but I want to build for local residents. I have not indicated at all my intention to use this water for luxury homes. The R1 water the departments have been doing a great job of cleaning it up as far as with the bacteria. It's high in nutrients. It needs to be put on the land, not in the ocean. And it's important that we could service the hotels to minimize their use of it, to use the potable water to build homes for our local residents.
Thank you very much for that answer. Ms. King, given the concerns about the county's history of prioritizing high-end developments over affordable housing, how would you ensure that any expansion of R1 water is treated as a public trust resource, preserved for public benefit, and used to support affordable housing rather than luxury developments?
Can you hear me? All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me here and for putting this on. I really appreciate the chance to talk. And Carol Lee is right. This is a beautiful setting. This is one of the best forums I've been to. As far as, with all due respect about the R1 resolution, we really don't need a resolution because we do have an ordinance that requires that if R1 is available, it has to be used. And I know this because in my very first term, I was working with a couple condos in South Maui that didn't want to use R1, and R1 was coming through the pipeline in front of them, and so we had to work that out. But R1, all water is public trust, and we have to treat it as such. I think what we really need is continue with the Water Authority. We got to get that strengthened. We've got to get that up and running. And the intent was to have a Water Authority for the west side and one for Central Maui for the west, for the Wailuku Water Company. Once we have the water in the hands of the public, of the Maui people, I think we're going to get much more focus on affordable housing. But to that end, we need a prioritization policy that says that water is first for affordable housing, and it has to, in my mind, it has to be 100% affordable in order to use our precious water. We should not be building high-end, even if there's Leadcore right now, 900 luxury homes to 100 affordable homes. That's not acceptable. And those 900 will drive up the prices of homes quicker than those we can sell those 100 affordable. But we need a policy that says that the number one priority for water is affordable housing and 100% affordable housing projects and agriculture. Those are the two things that we need. We need food security, we need housing security, and I don't understand why we don't already have a policy like that, but that's one of the things I think that will keep us on the right track and make the other developers, make luxury developers understand that there's not a place for them right now until we get everybody into an affordable house.
Thank you. Learned only one of our mics can be on at a time. Testing. Try this again. Okay. So question number 2 comes from a community member. Community member, please come on up to ask your question and please state your name.
My name is Carlos Lamas. I'm a first aid instructor, own and operate a first aid and CPR certification company here on Maui. Ms. King, as a displaced Lahaina resident currently living in a Minatoya unit in South Maui, I can tell you firsthand that these units serve as a crucial lifeline for those of us in need of long-term housing. You've stated that people may not want to live in these units. However, my experience and the experience of many others refute your statement. At a recent forum, you've expressed support for forming a temporary investigative group to study the issue, but what we need is immediate action, not another study. Is your mind already made up on opposing the conversion of Minatoya units, or are you open to supporting this as a housing solution tool to address the urgent need for long-term housing on Maui?
Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate that question. And yes, my mind is open. What I said was that we don't need 7,000 units, but I do think that there are buildings that are appropriate. And if you found one that you can afford, I'm very happy. Hopefully, it's not one of the ones that needs really bad repair that's on the coastline. But my concern is that I don't see a lot of especially on the west side, a lot of these condo units being affordable. So what I would like to do is identify the ones that are where people can live in there, where they're appropriate for families, for local families to live in. And I would like to see the county work with FEMA to buy these units so we can keep them affordable, because that's my biggest concern. I've been hearing from all these condo owners in South Maui how much the HOA fees are going up, and they're averaging $900 a month on top of whatever the rent is. Their insurance is going up. Their repair bills are going up because there's some really aged buildings there. So I do think there's a portion of them that need to be converted. We need to figure out which ones those are. I'm not in favor of blanketly converting all of them, because what's going to happen is we'll have stranded assets, and then we'll have the hotels clamoring to build more hotels on the island. But I'm excited if you can you tell me which unit you're in? You don't want to say? Okay. Anyway, I'm excited that you found one unit, and if there's other families living in there and you found one that's appropriate, that's where we should start the negotiations. So, yeah, no, I am totally open to that. I don't like the way the proposal was made with no plan for which ones to convert and how to convert them.
Councilmember Cook, we agree that some units, particularly those operating like hotels with front desks and daily maid service, may be appropriate for upzoning. However, the majority of these complexes, both now and in the past, especially prior to Airbnb, have housed people like myself who have lived in them long term. At the West Maui Taxpayer Forum, you said we need housing now and suggest these units aren't the solution. With the ongoing challenges of water and permitting on West Maui, and even with the possibility of lawsuits, what housing could realistically come online faster than these units, which are already built and have existing water and sewer allocations?
Thank you for the question. I am supportive of doing away with the Minatoya list and zoning appropriately the TVRs or the units that are going to be kept as commercial properties. Maybe it's just me. I think that they're talking to people in South Maui. There's a lot of illegal short-term rentals that aren't paying the taxes by changing the zoning. When I say change the zoning, I want to do it with the stroke of a pen, not go through like months and months of all the departments grinding out these different buildings. We can make them upgrade the infrastructure and pay for it, but to enable people to move into them as quickly as possible. A lot of them are old masonry structures that are not suitable for a young couple to be able to get. You might be able to live in it and rent in it for a while, but you wouldn't want to own it. I'd like to keep those units for commercial to make the money, connect the money. There's also 300 to 500 units that I've been told that were built as conditions of entitlement for the hotels that are more like condominium apartments on the Mauka side of South Kihei Road. So as soon as possible, sorting this out, but providing housing where we can and to the extent possible as soon as possible, but not destroying our economy. I'd like to pivot away from tourism being the primary economic engine, but we need to do just that. We need to pivot. We can't just like abandon ship. So I'm really happy that you found a place. We need housing. For me, the best thing the county can do is reduce the risk and the time it takes to get permitting so that people can build.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your answers. Last and final question, underground utilities. Councilmember Cook, after the fires, there has been a surge in community interest in moving utilities underground to improve safety and resilience, especially given the increasing risks from extreme weather events. Councilmember Johnson authored a bill to mandate underground utilities for all new developments, but it is currently waiting for your committee to give it a hearing. How do you view the role of underground utilities in safeguarding our communities? And if you're reelected, do you plan to move forward with this bill to ensure the community at least gets a robust public discussion on mandating underground utilities for new developments, particularly in fire-prone areas?
Thank you for the question. I'm an advocate of underground utilities. Just for your information, all new subdivisions, all new developments are mandated to put in underground utilities. In Lahaina, the challenge that we have is twofold. One, the major primary lines in any subdivision, the really high-powered lines, practically can't go underground. It takes a lot more to repair and maintain those lines. In Lahaina, one of the biggest challenges we have is because of the cultural sensitivity and to be able to dig and trench extensively through the neighborhoods where the roads are is problematic. If we can resolve that, if the community can come to terms, that's my resistance. That's Maui Electric's resistance. The second item is it's not a subdivision, so each individual owner would have to foot the bill, or we're going to have to, as a community, to pay for that. I would be an advocate of bonding it and doing it if possible, but it's going to slow down. If we decided to do that, it's going to slow down the reconstruction of the homes significantly. So I'd like underground power. I'm not opposed to underground power from a very practical, pragmatic perspective, slowing down people moving back to their homes, as well as the cultural impact to be trenching extensively through the ground has been why I've been resistant to that. Everywhere else, it's like underground wherever it's possible.
Thank you. Ms. King, after the fires, there has been a surge in community interest in underground utilities to improve safety and resilience in the face of increasing extreme weather events. If you are elected, would you support underground utilities where practical? And what steps would you take to ensure that new developments, especially in fire-prone areas, adopt safer utility practices?
Thank you. I don't know if this is it working? Can you hear? Okay, thank you for that question. Yes, I'm totally in support of underground utilities. And, it's frustrating to hear we can't do it because this reason or that reason or something about the trenching. We're digging in the ground to put the roads back in, where somehow it's okay to dig to put injection wells in the ground and have them bubble up under our oceans and kill our reef. But we have this big concern when it comes to undergrounding the utilities. So I do think it'll be practical to be able to find the pathway to where they are. And I don't think that the residents should have to pay for it, because our whole utility grid is something that Hawaii Electric Company has used. I mean, the taxpayers pay for it, but it's been used by the utility, a private utility, all these years. And we've gone through periods where we've tried to be able to put power back onto the grid from our homes, and we can only go so far. We don't get paid for extra power that goes from our solar panels that goes back on the grid. We only get paid, we can cover our own costs, but we don't get paid for the extra power. So there's a lot of extra power that we're putting back on the grid. And I apologize if I'm not looking at the audience, but it's just like the bright lights and it's very dark. I feel like I'm on a stage at a concert. But no, I mean, there's a way to do it, and I think we need to look for that way. And the very first thing we need to do is have that discussion. Put it on the agenda, and let's talk about it. And let's talk about it with the utilities, and let's talk about it with our federal government, because the infrastructure bill is not going to be there forever. It's there right now, and there's money there, and there's money from FEMA. Now is the time we should be talking about where to underground.
Closing remarks. And Ms. King, we'll start with you. 1 minute.
Again, I really appreciate this format, and I appreciate being able to talk to some of you folks ahead of time. When I got talked into a couple of years ago running for mayor, and I stepped down to run for mayor unsuccessfully, I've been watching what's been happening on the council, and everything's slowed. All the good things, the affordable housing, the plan that we had in place that we were going through slowed, and we stopped. I watched the stoppage of that plan. There was no continuation of the youth council that I had created. Now we're watching the environmental bill starting to be walked back and trying to be repealed. And, this is a crossroads year for all of us at the county level, all the way up to the federal level. But at the county level, we have a chance to turn our council back into a council that listens to the people and puts the people first. And I want to address something that was said earlier. We don't always get along on the council because some of us are really paying attention to what's going on in the communities, and we're not supposed to. We're not always supposed to agree, and we're not supposed to always agree with the departments. Some of the best environmental bills I got passed despite the departments not working with them because they wouldn't go along with innovation. So, again, Kelly King for Maui, please take a look at the website. Come talk to me if you can see me at the table after this. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Cook, Councilmember Cook, 1 minute.
Thank you all. Thanks, Lahaina Strong, for having this forum, the opportunity for people to get to know us and see us. I look forward to anybody and everybody. Please reach out to me to talk story and get to know me better. Okay? My history: as a teenager, bought a piece of 4.5 acres off grid where my kid's great grandma was up in Pitahula. Had a tent, had a shed, had a house, had a wind generator, was totally off the grid. My oldest boy, Kamale, still has the property. I moved away to Kihei 16, almost 17 years ago now. His mom and I planted trees 2 years before he was born. He's going to be 48. They're like that. When I talk about generational housing, that's where Tom Cook's heart's at. I'm talking about keeping it in the family. I've never speculated in real estate. I'm a builder. I'm not a developer. I'm not a realtor. And I look forward for you to get to know me a little bit better. I'm also a technician, not an artist. When I talk about this stuff, like the underground, I talked extensively. I met with Maui Electric. I met with the different departments. I'm the chair of water and infrastructure. It isn't just simply foo-foo talking. It's extensive talk and trying to get things to work, trying to push it forward, but also recognizing that there's parameters and things that we just have to pay attention to. I'm open. You tell me something I don't know, I'll listen. Thank you very much, and aloha, good evening.
Thank you both so much for your time. Round of applause for these two candidates. Watch your step. Thank you, Councilmember Paulson. Okay, up next, don't go far. Up next is West Maui. Incumbent Tamara Paulton, Chair of the Disaster Resilience International Affairs and Planning Committee. Her challenger, Lorian Aquintis, could not make it this evening, but thank you so much for being here. Would still love your mana'o on all of these questions. The first question that we have relates to our economy. As Lahaina begins to recover, many community members are asking about the return of vibrant local businesses that have long been central to the town's economy. What specific strategies do you have to support the economic recovery of Lahaina and ensure that local businesses, especially those impacted by the fires, can reopen and thrive in the long term?
Thank you for the question. Thank you to Lahaina Strong for putting this on. And I've been speaking with many business owners, and this is a big concern for them. You know, they feel that, you know, they also are paying mortgages, and it's a very high mortgage, especially a lot of the folks on Front Street. And I've also spoken with the managing director, and while the council can't make those types of things happen, I've been encouraging him. He has been talking with the owners of the outlet mall space, and their parking structure still is intact. And the possibility of the county leasing that and opening it up for our local businesses to do commerce there. There has been some concern about you know, bringing people into the burn zone. And so when I asked him, you know, well, would this be tomorrow? And he's all like, no, it's probably 6 or 7 months out. And I'm like, you know, by then people will be more ready. A lot of the concern I hear now is that people are parking in their driveways, walking across their lots and things like that when they go to restaurants in the mall area. And so I think, you know, with the outlet malls, the parking garage still standing, that's an excellent way we can, you know, keep the parking in one area and do a phased controlled opening, bringing people into that area. And also as people rebuild, you know, they may want to look for places to eat for lunch or afterwards. So I think it's a really good opportunity for the county to partner with a lot of our small businesses who are displaced.
Thank you very much. Second question comes from one of our community members. Community member, please come on up.
Aloha. I've been instructed to be loud. Can you guys hear me in the back? So I was in the back and I couldn't really hear. My name is Jackie Keefe. Mahalo for being here tonight. Councilmember Paulton. With the county lifting the security checks and opening access to cleared neighborhoods, many residents are concerned about disaster tourists entering their properties, as well as an increase in crime, especially at night due to the lack of streetlights. We are forming a neighborhood watch group, but there have already been reports of stolen building supplies. What is your plan to ensure the safety of residents and their properties?
Thank you for the question. You know, this issue really seemed to have come to a head when we were visiting Sonoma, which was helpful because there were a lot of elected officials from other jurisdictions that had burnt down. Some of them were very rural. And so we were asking them, you know, what they had done in their areas, as well as some of the organizations that donated and brought supplies. So what I've done so far is made contact with one of the commissioners from Oregon. She said that in their area, they started a locked shed program where kids from the schools built sheds for residents to keep their supplies in that could lock. And she has sent me the plans, which I forwarded to Lahaina Strong, and I believe Maui College has a program like that. We were able to talk to, I think, Good 360 about the possibility of donating motion sensor lights and other things like that. And then the other thing that we're trying to do is work with FEMA. Some of the property owners were approached by FEMA about putting a temporary structure while they rebuild or even to transition into as a housing. And some of the easements prevent that. So what we're doing is, especially if they're unused easements, seeing about how to take that off so they can fit it with the I believe the setback for temporary is 5 feet instead of 6 feet, so that we can just fit something on, because it's not only about rebuilding all our houses, it's also, to me, a lot about rebuilding our community. And so as people can live on their lands in temporary structures or do these community patrols, we're setting the stage for the community that we want to come back. And it's not just about building houses, but it is about supporting the survivors and helping them to rebuild and helping them to feel safe. So it's gotten a little bit of a slow start, but we're trying to bump it up to a full-fledged neighborhood watch.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last and final question, question number 3, luxury developments. Many West Maui residents are frustrated by the lack of water resources for rebuilding affordable housing, especially given the urgent need to rebuild after the fires. Yet, we continue to see proposals for luxury developments in other parts of the island, acting as if water availability is less of a concern. How do you plan to address the imbalance in resource allocation, and what steps will you take to ensure that all of Maui's water resources are prioritized for affordable housing, not luxury developments?
Thank you. I've mostly been focusing on West Maui, and we're under a ground and surface water special management designation, which is has its own challenges, because as we're trying to rebuild permanent housing. But the way that I'm approaching it for West Maui, I'd love to approach it for the rest of the county, but we would need to update our community plans a lot faster than what we have been. For West Maui, we just updated our community plans in 2022, and we have these huge projects, over 50% affordable, and they've been on the books for decades, and they're not moving forward. And then we've had all these proposals that come up in the aftermath of the fire, also for affordable housing and good stuff. And then we have a question of what's going to be rebuilt on the government, what's going to be rebuilt in the private sector. And so this Wednesday, I'm going to try and have a discussion about that, like what all the options are, what all the infrastructure requirements are, like a big master plan look at it. And then hoping that I've invited the chair of DLNR, who oversees the Commission on Water Resource Management, which would give out the water use permit applications, to show like the big picture. And if some developments aren't going to move forward, then what are we going to pivot to? And as the water use permit applications get processed for new and existing uses, then we can better allocate all our water. For the East Maui, they have the East Maui Water Authority, and that is moving forward, so I think that's good. The central area is kind of an issue because of what's going on. Central Wailuku area, their water also services South Maui, and I know that there's a big project that's being developed over there that's luxury. I think that we need to take a look that when that project was approved, it was under the 50% affordable standard. So if we're not getting the full allocation of affordable housing, then it shouldn't be the full allocation of luxury as well. Thank you.
1 minute for your closing remarks.
Thank you. So my name is Tamara Polton. I'm running for West Maui County Council. I've worked as a public servant pretty much my entire life. Prior to being in this role, I worked for about 20 years in ocean safety. I know what it's like to save a life. I know what it's like to lose a life. And, I'm really committed to this West Maui community, especially now, and the county as a whole. And, win or lose, I'm going to still support the community and do everything that I can to bring us forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Makawao, Haiku, and Paia. Incumbent Nohelani Uuhajins, Chair of the Government Relations, Ethics, and Transparency Committee. And her challenger, Naraboon, singer, voice teacher, and co-founder of Maui Housing Hui. Hi. We'll give it a try. Yeah, let's try it. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, first question, fire preparedness. Councilmember Uuhajins, the recent report confirming that Hiko caused the Lahaina fire highlights the vulnerability of our historic towns. Lahaina's destruction has impacted the entire island. And your district includes Makawao and Paia, both of which have many of the same conditions of pre-fire Lahainas. Charming old buildings, tight streets, aging energy infrastructure, and are surrounded by a changing agricultural landscape in the face of increasing drought conditions. What are you doing specifically in your district and beyond to safeguard these towns and ensure that a tragedy like Lahaina's does not happen again?
Thank you. First, it is really bright up here, so I do apologize. I cannot see everybody. And thank you so much for that question. Thank you to Lahaina Strong for having us here. If I sound funny, it's because I'm getting over a cold, so I do apologize. Nobody else is sick in my house. It's just me, so I don't think I'm contagious. I will say that real quick because I was alohaing other people up here. That's a really good question, and it's something that we've often discussed in my house. My husband's a fireman, so we discuss that in my house. We've discussed that on the council floor, and we discussed that in my community. For Paia Town specifically, because we've had so many fires, I asked for and organized a meeting with fire, MEMA, police, managing director, and the large landowners surrounding Paia Town so that we could figure out what are the issues and how can we best prevent another tragedy like Lahaina, because Paia for a little while was looking like mini Lahaina 2.0. And I feel like if we don't do something, then we are negligent. And I said that on the floor, and I refuse to be negligent. So we did some stuff. We created park hours for Holomua Road, and I know that's controversial, but until we can figure out how to safely protect Paia Town and not lose Paia Town, a town that I grew up in, that my family has been since the beginning of time, we have to do something. That's Paia. For Makawao, I'm actually having a town hall next week so I could hear from our communities and figure out what we can do for Makawao Town. Makawao Town is on that PSP Miko, so if there's ever a trigger, Makawao Town goes out. In the last storm we had, I didn't have power for about 18 hours. So informing our community what we're gonna do as everybody tries to be as fire safe as we can, how can we best prepare for that safety, and what does that look like? So ensuring that you have access to radios. Is my time up? Yes. Okay, thank you. So we're working on it, but I definitely know it requires everybody to help us figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Boone, with the recent confirmation that Hiko caused the Lahaina fire, it's clear that our historic towns like Makawao and Paia in your district are at risk, given their aging energy infrastructure, old buildings, and vulnerability to changing weather and drought conditions. If you are elected, what would you do differently to protect these towns and prevent another disaster like what happened in Lahaina?
I think the main thing that I would do is make sure that these large landowners keep their properties under control, first and foremost. I know with what's happening on Holomua Road, it is controversial. I don't agree with the gates that are being proposed to put up, these park hours. This is an evacuation route, and if we've learned anything, is that the last thing we want are locked gates when people are trying to escape. It is the route for people to escape Kuau area, Ho'okipa area, to get to higher ground. It's also, in my mind, punishing the people that are living up there that are houseless, oftentimes not by their own volition or their own fault. So I would definitely upgrade our infrastructure. There is one pole in particular on going up into Makawao that I've watched for years that is completely splintered and not connected on the bottom at all, and it's connected at the top to another pole. So, and it's been there for years. They just recently fixed the one pole that was hanging over like this by Makawao Ranch Acres just in time for the parade. So Lahaina Strong's truck, you know, I know that you guys almost caught the wires, but didn't. So we need to be way more mindful of not repeating the same mistakes that have been exposed with this horrible event in Lahaina.
Thank you very much. Second question comes from one of our community members right here.
Aloha, my name is Katie Austin, Council Member U'u Hodgins. During the 6 months I lived at the Fishing for Housing occupation on Ka'anapali Beach, Lahaina Strong became a safety net for kupuna, families with children, and people with disabilities, many of whom had jobs but no secure place to stay on the west side or leave their belongings. We saw firsthand how the lack of affordable housing has left so many slipping through the cracks. What is the county doing to create safe spaces for local families who can no longer keep up with the cost of living and have nowhere to go?
Thank you so much for that question, Katie. I would like to say this is the first forum, though, that we did have specific people come and ask us questions. So I do appreciate that. It takes a lot of guts for you guys, too. So thank you. I think there's a few things we can do. One is we can make housing. We can create housing. I know Charlie and everybody else was up here talking about housing, so we know that for sure. In my previous job, I helped create affordable housing, and I understand how difficult that is. And so we definitely need more affordable housing and access to affordable housing and all the infrastructure that comes with it. And that's if you can afford affordable housing, right? And if you cannot afford affordable housing, we need to figure out how we can create rentals and how we can create other safe spaces for people to go. Just recently, I've actually been working with the prosecutor's office to figure out where our gaps are in some of our resources. And it's weird it's the prosecutor's office because they deal with a lot of stuff, as we learned in Member Senenzi's class, in his committee today. It felt like class, you know? Where we have gaps. And it's important to understand where we have gaps so we understand where we got to fill in. And whether it's county government and council, because again, we're limited in policy and financing, or if it's helping to find somebody to fill in those gaps. So I'm curious to see what we're learning. We're actually going to have what's I think called like a Maui Summit, where we get all these nonprofits and all these agencies to a table and we discuss what everybody does and what people don't do and where people actually need help. So I'm really curious that I'm hoping to organize it. It's to come. I'm really curious what that's going to tell us. Like I said, we already know we need housing. That's obvious. Everybody has been saying that for 30-something years, and I'm 38, so nearly my entire life. So we just need to make housing. We have to create housing, and we have to make it affordable. We have to figure out where our gaps are, and we have to address it. And we need to do it like yesterday, but today is good too.
Mahalo, Council Member. Ms. Boone, if elected, what would you do differently than the current leadership to ensure safe and secure options for local families who have nowhere to go?
Stop the sweeps, first and foremost. I don't feel like the county is doing enough. If anybody has tuned into any of these, I tend to get really emotional about it. It's because I really care. I really care, and seeing the struggles that people have been going through has been hard, which is a ridiculous thing to say. It's been hard to watch everyone else go through it, and I've been doing my best to try to assist, not just with fire survivors, which I have been working with, but also with our general public, who is also struggling so hard right now. We need safe spaces. I know that Kelly King had introduced a safe space idea before, and I didn't see that come to fruition. What happened to the campgrounds that we had growing up? I don't know if anybody else remembers. There used to be a campground at Ho'okipa. There used to be a campground at Baldwin Beach. There used to be places that you could go. McKenna. and camp and not be harassed. And to see the beautification of the parks that happened right at the anniversary or the remembrance time of the fires was so infuriating to me. I'm a housing advocate. I know what it's like to be days away from not having a place to live. I do not want that for anyone else. And what we have all been going through and what the rents have caused for so many people with FEMA's direct lease program and everything else has made it such a struggle. We need to do more. We need to do it now. I'm really upset, by the way, that there was no rent stabilization legislation brought forward recently. I'll say that as well.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Katie. Question number 3. Speaking of, the rent is too damn high. Councilmember Uuhajens, rising rents are making it nearly impossible for local families to stay on the island. Recently, the chair of the Housing Committee stated that she would not be taking up any rent stabilization legislation. Do you support the rent stabilization concept that was presented to the council, or do you share the same concerns about this legislation? And what policies would you support or implement to bring some sanity to the rising rents and ensure housing remains affordable for local residents?
That was a really good question. I do appreciate all of your sprinkling of color in that one, so that's good. I do think, so one, it's a difficult conversation to have because it is on everybody's mind. I mean, Nara included and everybody else that we heard from. I had a good long talk with Desi, who was in our committee talking to us about it. And what I think we should do, and I don't know enough about rent stabilization because that meeting, if you watched it, was so interesting. You had 2 different groups of people saying the exact opposite things. As a housing person, like I actually did housing, listening to it was incredibly confusing. So what I think would be best for us as people who have to make decisions is to figure out where the balance is in everything that's been told to us. So one, we didn't have legislation. It was a 7B. So we could only discuss it in hypothetical, which was kind of weird. But in reading what Desi guys gave me, and I had several meetings with them, and what I told her and what I told, I think his name's Alan, is that I am open to every solution we need for housing, every solution possible. Because again, we've been dealing with this for nearly 30-something years. So I would never say no to anything. But what we do need to do is figure out how this is going to actually work and how this will benefit everyone. So in reading their proposed legislation, I think they kind of piecemealed from everywhere else that has rent stabilization policy or rent control policy throughout the nation. It was curious to see how it would work in a very small island with demographics that vary significantly throughout our zip codes, and how much work that might be, so how much we would need to prepare as a body of government and as council, what we would need to do. So I'm totally open to figuring how we could make it all work and how much we would need to do, I'll wrap it up, as a government to ensure that it's actually applicable and it makes sense for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Spoon, rising rents are driving local families off the island, making it increasingly difficult for residents to find affordable housing. Recently, the chair of the Housing Committee said she would not be taking up any rent stabilization legislation. Do you support the concept of rent stabilization that was presented to the council, or do you share the same concerns about this type of legislation? And if you are elected, what policies would you implement to tackle the rising rents and ensure that housing remains affordable for local families?
Thank you. I don't necessarily agree with the legislation that was brought forward. This idea of rental freezes right now is unrealistic when most of us can't pay for the rents that are happening. The majority of the rent increases that have happened, this price gouging, is completely illegal. What I would like to see is some kind of regulation, some kind of enforcement for that. We do need some kind of regulation, though, absolutely. If we can go back to what rents were August 9th, 2023, that would be amazing. I was really encouraged by Director Mitchell, Director of Housing. His ideas of the county purchasing land and laying down the infrastructure and then taking bids for affordable housing, I thought was fantastic. That would cut down on the price. I think we need zero luxury housing at this point. I think we need no more. If we can't house our people, then what good is it anyway? The other thing is deed restrictions. I love that idea, and it kind of reminds me a little bit about similar to Lahaina Community Land Trust. The idea that if you sell the property, it must be to a long-term resident, or if you're going to rent, it must be to a long-term resident. So those are just a couple of the things I would absolutely support our Director of Housing with those ideas, and I would bring more forward as well as the Maui Housing Hui. Thank you.
So we'll keep it with you. 1 minute for your closing remarks.
So again, I am a singer and a voice teacher, but I'm also somebody that cares really, really, really deeply for our community. Co-founder of the Maui Housing Hui, I also work with Wisdom Circles Oceania, which brings therapeutic art and music programs to fire survivors all over the island. I'm entrenched in this place that we all call home, and I know that we all need and deserve better than we have going on right now, and I want to be part of that solution. I want to be one of the community voices at decision-making tables. I do not have any connections with developers or realtors or anything else that would sway where my focus is. And again, please remember, you can vote for all 9 council seats, no matter where you live in Maui County, and we need to get people activated to vote. And when you do, please check the boombox. Mahalo.
Councilmember U'u Hodges, 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Thank you so much. I feel like everything has already been said, so I'll just add a couple of things. I haven't been to this beach for a really long time, but I used to come here to paddle about 9 or 8 months out of the year for about 10 years of my life. So this is a really refreshing side to be on, because typically I'm like over there under a blue tent. But now I get to be on this side, so this is really nice. I would like to add, I think Member Sugimura said this earlier, but we are kind of like a canoe. But the first thing you learn when you paddle canoe is you keep your eyes in your own boat. You focus your mana on yourself. You don't mind what everybody else is doing, because you cannot control what everybody else is doing. You can control yourself. And I think we need to remember that when we have to do all of these things, because some of the things that was set up here was, to me, a little bit embarrassing. Not you, Nara, just other people. We actually have a great race. I feel like we have been extremely respectful to each other, and I really appreciate you and how this has gone. But for other people, I think we need to remember that we are a part of this community, each and every one of us. And we might agree, but to learn how to disagree respectfully is something probably other people should do better at. Again, we're not going to agree with everybody on everything, and that's okay. And in the balance and that push and pull is where we find compromise. It's where we find good policy. And it is something I strive to do with all 9 members of the council. It's something I strive to do in my household. And I know that this conversation with developers and real estate people is common. But I'll finish it up. I understand how we all have contributions. And I made this joke to my husband, and whatever today. If I could be bought with $2,000, my husband really overpaid. And I disagree with him all the time, okay? I just want to say that for the record. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you both very much. Please put your hands together for these 2 amazing candidates. Okay, next up, Molokai. Incumbent Kiani Rollins Fernandez. She is the chair of the Efficiency Solutions and Circular Systems. Her challenger, John Pele, could not be here tonight. But thank you so much, Council Member, for joining us and sharing your mana'o on these very important topics. Okay, question number 1. Policy with potential lawsuits. Council Member, you have shown support for the phase out of short-term rentals. But opponents of the bill argue that the county will face costly lawsuits as a result of this measure. As a council member who is also graduated from law school, what is your process or philosophy behind supporting this or any policy that the county is likely going to have to defend in court, potentially at the significant expense to taxpayers?
Mahalo for that question. Anyone can file a lawsuit for anything at any time. And so I think it would be foolish of any policy-making group to be deterred by those that have access to money and those types of resources, because can you imagine what kind of laws that we would have if we were shied away from the policies for the people if we are threatened by lawsuits? I support, yes, absolutely, we shouldn't be deterred by threats of lawsuits by those that have lots of money and resources. I support the mayor's bill to phase out STRs, and I stood proudly with him and Lahaina Strong at the press conference announcing the legislation. It's not something new. We've talked about it for years. This is the apartment zoning STRs, referred to as the Minatoya list, and there used to be a lot more residents that lived in these units. I know that people talk about the high HOAs, but if you look at what the HOAs cover, it covers insurance, it covers water, it covers electricity, sometimes Wi-Fi, maintenance, insurance, and we know how much insurance has gone up. So when we talk about the HOAs for these units, we have to also look at our own costs for these comparable items, and it's about the same. We need to reclaim our housing units for our residents. There's limited water. There's limited capacity in the wastewater. And speaking of, we need to eliminate the use of injection well. I support that fully and will work very hard to that end. Is that time? Okay, I will stop there.
Thank you. Okay, question number 2 comes from one of our community members. So community member, please come on up.
Aloha mai kako o wau o Shannon I'i. I'm a kupa of Lahaina for many generations. Your question is, Molokai has successfully resisted being overrun by tourism, with some viewing this as an economic challenge, while others see it as a strength in preserving the island's local culture. As a kupa'aina of Molokai, you have the first-hand experience balancing cultural preservation with economic realities. How does your experience and value system equip you to help Lahaina strike a balance between preserving its unique, deep-rooted culture and ensuring a sustainable economic recovery?
Aloha, Shannon. Mahalo for that question. As a kupa'aina of Molokai, I'm so proud of our kupuna and all those community champions that came before us to preserve our way of life, because as we looked over and saw what was happening on the other islands, we knew that once you crack open that door, that the moneyed interest would soon almost supersede the political power of the people. And I think that what Lahaina Strong and the community are doing in getting people involved, because this is supposed to be a representative democracy, and we see lower and lower voter turnout. And I understand the cynicism and the hopelessness that people feel. And as elected officials, it's our kuleana to show our people who we represent, that we are here for the people, and that we will advance policies that are in their best interests, in all of our best interests, because generational families, having the stories of where your grandparents and your friends' grandparents went to school together, and then they raised their children together, and then their grandchildren grew up together, and so on, like, that's irreplaceable.
And that's something that we have to fight for. And we have to work together to ensure that people are coming out to testify, that we're making it easy and accessible for people to participate in government. And I see you're nodding your head, so I think my time is up. Mahalo for that.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, last and final question. Council approval rating. A recent Civil Beat survey revealed a low approval rating for the council's response to the Lahaina fires, with many residents feeling that more could have been done. As a sitting member of the council, what actionable steps will you take to improve future disaster responses and rebuild public trust in the council's ability to lead during crises?
Mahalo for that question. Okay, I just want to say for the record that Civil Beat survey was mostly their readership, and their articles were pretty slanted against the council, and I think we were lumped together with the administration, and therefore we weren't scored fairly. I'm sure Charlie appreciates that response. But to the question of building, doing better to resist to public trust. Okay. So as I was mentioning to Shannon in the previous question, it's about making government more accessible to the people, ensuring that we have community cohesion, housing stability, so that our community itself is more resilient. And that was something that we saw in Lahaina. That's something that we saw when Molokai came over to provide aid. It was that connection. And so I think being here on the Aina, being together with the people and being accessible, being inclusive, talking story whenever possible, attending events, not just staying in our office secluded, but really working together with the different community groups, because that's one of the strengths, I believe, of local government, is that we're here in the community working shoulder to shoulder with the people.
Thank you very much. And you have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Mahalo. Okeani Rollins Fernandez. Ovao Okeani Rollins Fernandez. He aloha aina. No Molokai maiau. I ran for office for the same reason. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to get emotional. For the same reason that I got my law degree and my MBA. And I'm a community organizer at heart, and I'm so inspired by all the leaders of Lahaina Strong. Absolutely. The work that you all are doing, it reminds me of myself 10 years ago, just wanting to do good for our people. And, sorry. You know what my priorities are, because my priorities are your priorities, and I'm right there with you, our community, right there in the trenches, literal trenches on the beach, digging sand with you, sleeping under the tents with you. And that's where I'll continue to be shoulder to shoulder with you. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a bonus round. These unopposed incumbents wanted to share with the Lahaina community what they have been working on. So please welcome our Hana and Lanai council members. Shane Sinensi, Chair of the Water Authority, Social Services and Parks Committee, and Gabe Johnson, Chair of the Agriculture, Diversification, Environment, and Public Transportation Committee. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Aloha. So Councilmember Sinensi and Councilmember Johnson, with housing and water being the top issue on everyone's minds, we'd like to give each of you 5 minutes to share what you are focused on in your upcoming term to support Lahaina's recovery in these critical areas. And Councilmember Sinensi, we'll start with you.
Mahalo, Chelsea. And I just wanted to say I wanted to come tonight just to thank Lahaina Strong personally. You know, it's been pretty impressive, and I'm definitely a fan. You've been able to affect political change. You've organized. You've been able to break down some of these silos that we, as council members, constantly see at the state, the county, the federal government. So I just wanted to commend you guys in you guys' short run, but it's been an impressive one. For water, as you know, water is a public trust. And what I'm finding out as a council member is that the public trust is a fairly new issue. Ever since the Constitutional Convention in 1978. So the public trust hasn't been, CWORM hasn't been formed since, it's only been formed since 1987. And so all of these commissions on water, prior to that, we found out as during the plantation days, plantations just ran amok with all of our water. And so after the Constitutional Convention, we had to put in some protections for water, for the public trust, and to save water for the people. So that was one of the main thing. I think for Lahaina, you know, and just as the of the Pacific, you know, the Venice of the Pacific, water has been, you know, here for decades, for hundreds of years. So I think this discussion that we're having about the public trust, we need to go back. And Lahaina being that historical site, the site of the old Hawaiian kingdom, we need to go back and have those discussions, how and why these things happened. And so we've got this important time in history. We've got an opportunity to ask those questions again, go back. This is where history was made. We need to go back and answer those historical questions and restart from there.
Do you want to share on housing? Some housing solutions that you plan to implement?
I'll let Gabe.
Okay, I think you still had some time left for your 5 minutes.
For both? Oh,
yeah,
and
then yes.
Okay, how much more time I got? 2.5 minutes. Okay, housing. Again, going back to the kingdom days, right? And housing was supposed to be a condition of statehood, and we've never seen that. And I've always said that, and I'm glad that the state legislature had put in money, $600 million to develop the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. I'm happy that the council was able to put in GET taxes toward important infrastructure to build out these projects. So continue. I'm hoping that the legislature, and hoping with Lahaina Strong, that we can continue to push the legislature to put more monies into it. As far as housing, we're going to need, it's going to take 5 or more years to build out Lahaina. So I'm looking forward to the next budget, the third-year budget, fourth, fifth-year budget, so that we can appropriate affordable housing funds towards the west side. Thank you.
Mahalo, Councilmember. Councilmember Johnson, can you please share your thoughts on housing and water?
And I only have 5 minutes. Okay, well, first off, thank you, Lahaina Strong. Thank you, Chelsea, for allowing us to speak. We know we don't have a race, but we're definitely got some opinions on this issue. So I'll start off. First off, I'm a member of the working poor. I lived in low-income housing before I got this job before I ran for office. I was living in low-income housing on Lanai. I know the struggle, and it's real. So a lot of the bills that I pushed forward when I first got in office in 2020 as chair of affordable housing was based off what Carolee Kamekona was, the Comprehensive Affordable Housing Plan, the CAP. We put those policies into law. Bill 111 is one of the things I find I'm most proud of, and thank my fellow council members who've supported that bill. And that basically puts long-term residents a priority on affordable housing. We hear this, the two concerns our community has is, yeah, when you say affordable housing, you mean affordable for who, and what do you mean by affordable? Because these prices are not affordable. So the way we do that is we do the lottery system, and we rank you by how many years you've been a resident, and those folks who've been here the longest get priority. And that is legal, and we passed it. The only problem right now is the administration has not yet enforced it. So we have a new Department of Housing director. We're going to ask him once again to look at the administration of that bill. It's there. It is a policy. They just have to administer it. The second thing is when we talk about what do you mean by affordable? Is $800,000 an affordable house? That's insane. That's like going to the store and buying a steak for $19.99 and thinking you got a deal. So the way we looked at it is the way we look at the banks look at you. They look at your FHA loans, the first-time home buyer loans, the USDA loans. They ask 30% of your income should go for your mortgage. Well, that's what we try to push for, is that 30% of the developers can't charge you more than 30% of your income. That makes it truly affordable. We passed that bill. So that's what we did. And now when it comes to like moving forward and what we need to do, we need to look at county lands. We need to subsidize the infrastructure. So then we give the builder properties with the infrastructure already done and say, now build those homes for our community and make it affordable. That's how we do that. I'm a big fan of purchasing lands that the county can develop. And also by purchasing lands, you protect, right? As a county, we are not profit-driven, and we never should be. We're service-driven. So you buy the lands with county funds, and then you protect it and you build it for affordable housing for our people. So that's how we do that. Now, when it comes to the water issues, I believe, as Councilmember Senseney, as many of my other council members believe, that water is a public trust doctrine. Water is a public trust, and there's a doctrine involved in that. But what does that actually mean? I live on Lanai, 98% owned by a billionaire. You guys know the deal. Our water is private. It's in a private water company, but yet it's a public trust doctrine. And then they say, well, the delivery system is is the public part, or is the private part. We deliver you water. I don't agree with that. I don't like that. I support the county purchasing private water companies and actually putting its money where its mouth is when it comes to a public trust doctrine.
Thank you so much. 1 minute for closing remarks. Councilmember Sinensi.
Mahalo, Chelsea. I'm so happy to see the office of the clerk here and that they're registering. Mahalo for coming. I'm still trying to enlist a lot of my young folks in East Maui to register and to vote this election. Some of the younger guys, they just don't see the connection that, hey, you can drive your Toyota on smoother roads. You can get more, you don't have to pay for your kids' travel if you vote, and participate in local government. So I'm always reminded that the magic numbers are 25, 13, and 5. 25 for the House of Representatives, 13 for the Senate, and 5 for the Council. So you need a majority in all of these to pass any bills. So we need your vote so we can get things passed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Johnson.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you all for joining us today. I'm Gabe Johnson, council member for the island of Lanai. Maui County council member for the island of Lanai. I appreciate and would love your support for this upcoming election. I am running unopposed, which is it's the first time ever that I've ever had to deal with that, and it's kind of odd. But I just want to say, the day after the fires, I was up in Kula, and we came down to Lahaina Harbor. It was right after, and the military wasn't here. It was police blocking it off. And I came in and I brought a captain from Expeditions, and I said, we need to try to get the ferry up and running, and we want to go look at Lahaina Harbor. Of course, one of their boats sank, but the main thing we needed was the boat ramp, the gangplank, where people walk onto the boat from the dock. And among all the devastation, there was this little aluminum gangplank that didn't get touched. And there was a guy with a flatbed truck sitting right next to it, and we said, "Hey, can you put that on and take it to Ma'alaila?" And it was like, we did that, and it happened, and we got that boat up and running in 2 days after the fire. And that is a lifeline for my community, and that's what I want to fight for, is lifelines and keeping people, servicing the people, right? We want, the goal of all council members, the goal of all politicians is to make your life better. That's just that simple. So don't forget my name, Gabe Johnson. You can vote for all 9. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Well, that concludes our council candidates forum. Let's mahalo once again for all of our council candidates with a big round of applause. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here tonight and answer some very important topics addressing our community. I'm Chelsea Davis from Hawaii News Now, and on behalf of Lahaina Strong, I say mahalo for joining us tonight, and aloha.
Thank you.